This is not a test. Now is the time to panic.
В ответ на применение американского и британского дальнобойного оружия 21 ноября текущего года российские вооруженные силы нанесли комбинированный удар по одному из объектов оборонно-промышленного комплекса Украины.
First, why some senators are demanding more information on the Congressional shower room, and when Anna Paulina Luna uses it. Next, Nancy Mace displays man bulges to showcase you just never know what people are hiding, leading some Democrats to ask, does Doth protest too much? Next up, a relevant person nobody voted for weighs in on the exact thing voters don't have an interest in hearing from her about. Next up, exclusive audio of Zelensky's secret call to Biden asking if we can go with Trump's plan of having a conversation instead of getting Ukraine bombed to death. And lastly, how victims of sexual assault can convince their accusers to run for Republican cabinet positions so that their assaults will finally be reported on.
It's your daily dose of misinformation, pulled from a lately hemorrhoided asshole. It's today's Run Your Mouth!
People try and tell you what you gotta do. Don't you listen to them unless you think it's true. Follow your heart and your dreams. Follow your heart and your dreams.
Go. Now we have sound. Oh boy. Oh boy. What a fantastic. You know what just happened? I was trying to admit to the fact that I was wrong. I was coming onto the air to issue an apology for having gotten the last episode as wrong as I did. And my producer, he felt it in his soul. He was like, I can't have this kind of an apology to start the show. He was like, I can't have Rob broadcasting onto the internet that he got things wrong. We're the show that gets everything right. Anyways, if someone in the live chat could actually say you can hear me now, because I believe that we have sound coming through. After I issued my heartfelt apology for getting a topic as wrong as I did, I'm now ready to start the show, but I want to make sure that people can actually hear me. Okay, we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to the Run Your Mouth podcast. For those listening not live, we will not be issuing an edit for the first 30 seconds, so just assume that it was a moment of silence for the start of World War III. Or that we had some other heartfelt pitch. Whatever it is in your life you feel like you need to have a moment of silence for, I was graciously providing you with that moment of silence. I was letting you have a moment in your car where maybe you even got into a car accident. You started fiddling. You're like, did Rob fuck up the sound or is my sound not working? And you should have more confidence in your sound system. That's what we should take away from the moment of silence that we all had together in celebration or memorial of whatever it is that you felt you needed a moment of silence for in your life, and that you should also have more confidence in your own sound system, that it's in fact the fault of our producer and not you guys. So anyways, let's get into what I wanted to talk about, because I needed to do an episode. I had to get back live on Saturday to issue an apology for getting the transgender congressional bathroom issue horribly wrong. And I'm willing to admit when I get things wrong, because I was over here saying, hey, government's got enough resources, just get a private bathroom for this person and let's move on with our lives. And that was the wrong solution. You know why? Because finally, government is being forced to address the bathroom issues that plague our nation. We've got horrible bathroom access across this country. If we're going to have socialism, if we're going to have government that's going to steal resources from the wealthy in order to redistribute this wealth, can we have all nicer bathrooms for all of us? Can we have conversations about these horrible stalls that you can see within? Let's get nice, glamorous bathrooms nationwide. That's what we need to do. We need these congressional people being confronted with the improper bathroom access that all of us animals have to deal with on a daily basis. And then maybe that will bring us the glorious bathroom access that we need countrywide. And let me tell you, the economic growth that could happen from better bathroom access. You know how many people don't eat big meals out? You know how many 50, 60, and 70-year-olds retire to Florida and just stay within their little villages so that they're always just a golf cart distance away from their bathrooms? This is, you understand the flood of wealth that could get back into restaurants and the markets if we better socialized bathroom access. We got the and then sometimes they build glorious bathrooms, let the homeless people ruin them. We need homeless bathrooms on the outside of the villages. Anyways, I was wrong on this because, there should be one clear standard. Why is it because Congress has more resources, they should just be able to build? And what are we going to go like the crippled route, where all of a sudden every single parking spot is available for the cripples, and they should be staying home anyways. Their wheelchairs just get in the way. How often do you just trip into someone in their wheelchair because they decided to park themselves somewhere where there wasn't supposed to be a seat here? Okay. Anyway, someone says my uneven hoodie is bothering them. Well, what, more than the sound issues? How, what should we do to, is that better? No, I went the wrong way. That's the bad coordination right there. It almost feels like I'm wearing, it's like a graduation ceremony thing. All right, listen, we're trying to issue an apology here. Why are we getting distracted by hoodies? I think that Congress should be forced to confront this issue because there's things that get to be ignored all the time. Maybe what we need is people crossing over into the Congressional building. That's what we need. Like the way that all the immigrants come over the border, we send them in. What other issues do you guys face at home that you feel like the elites don't have to deal with? Because I guess if we can actually bring it to the halls of Congress and make it something that they have to confront, then maybe they should start running out of money. Maybe that would be the next move. If when they go to the congressional cafeteria, their little government credit cards that they get their salaries on, if all of a sudden they went, no, we actually have no money. And then they had to deal with the fact of, oh shit, we've spent all the money. Or put all these people on Congress on our healthcare plans. Let them get bills after they were told, oh yeah, this is covered from your insurance. Oh, let's just run this. Don't worry, that's covered from insurance. Oh, here's a bill 6 months later. Oh, you never saw the bill in the mail? Well, here's the ding on your credit things. So, whatever issues we have to confront as citizens, if anything, the way that we're going to get reform, it's not through lobbying, it's not through voting, it's not through yelling, it's somehow voting whatever annoys you most in the universe into the halls of Congress so that they have to confront it themselves and they don't get to actually ignore it. We need more illegal immigrants actually in the halls of Congress voting for bringing fentanyl into the country, and then they'll actually confront it. So, I'm here to say I was wrong. I thought, hey, this is a silly conversation. Do we really need to distract from everything that's going on in the country? And when you could just give this person their own bathroom and we can move on and talk about other things, that was wrong. What we need to do is whatever's annoying us in our lives, make sure that it's taking place in the halls of Congress itself so that these hypocrites have to actually deal with it. And so, in this case, this might be the thing that actually revolutionizes bathroom access in this country for all of us, finally gets people talking about the shitty stalls that we all have to deal with, the fact that even in airports, do you want us shitting on the planes? You go into the airport bathrooms and there aren't stalls available and you're like, who thought this one up? Would you rather these people taking their dumps on their planes? Nobody would prefer that. All right. And now what's most interesting about this conversation is, I guess, listen, I'm a big fan of freedom. And if you want to identify as a gender other than one that you were born at, have at it. If that's the way you want to live your life and you're an adult, I'm not here to stop you. I embrace it. I'd say that's the forefront of freedom. It's you saying I don't identify as the gender I was at birth, and I'm going to go be this other thing. God bless you. And you can move to areas of this country where they will embrace you. I mean, you will be the badge of honor of you being on the forefront of denying the gender that, you were born as. People love it. I mean, there's parts of the country where people love it, and there's parts of the country where people think it's kind of goofy, and you can choose to live in the areas where people will celebrate it and live that lifestyle. So I'm all for it. But there is a weird thing. So your thing is, hey, I want to identify as a gender other than the one that I was born as, and I feel more comfortable this way, and so we go ahead, go do it. But then, if you actually want to use the restroom of the gender that you're identifying as, there is potential to be making other people uncomfortable who don't actually see you as the other gender. And so now we have a conversation about who do we want to make uncomfortable? Because it's not just a simple thing of, oh, I'm identifying as the other thing and it's no harm, no foul. Well, now there's actually a consequence here of that people are telling you that it makes them uncomfortable and in a reasonable way. Like, it's one thing if you're just walking around and I have to see it. Like, you could be wearing a shirt that's offensive and I just have to see it. All right, well, it's not really a problem. If you want to go wear a swastika shirt in a grocery store, it doesn't make me feel comfortable. I'm like, wow, do people actually like the Nazi movement that much? Are you that allowed to just celebrate your Nazism? And then you could even go this route of how dangerous it is. I mean, if we embrace this and we let people just wear these SS shirts in public, and that's a call for violence against me. You could always go down the route of dangerous and how things make you uncomfortable. But this is an interesting one, right? Because you got the women or men who want to identify as women, and then you go, all right, if that makes you feel better, go for it. But then you have, well, I'd like a little bit of women being like, I'd like a little bit of privacy in the restroom. And now you do have to kind of come to a standard of, all right, do we accept this as objective truth that you can identify as a gender different than the one you're born as, even to the extent that you can use a restroom other than your born gender, even if it makes other women feel uncomfortable? And then you've got to wonder, well, why is the objective standard of gender, the gender you identifying as, more valid than your birth gender being your actual gender? And why is your comfort as identifying as a different gender, if the standard is just, hey, I'm more comfortable identifying as this, well, then why does that take precedent over women saying, well, I don't accept that and it makes me uncomfortable? And now we have the matchup of different women claiming what makes them more uncomfortable, and in the most dramatic ways that you could possibly imagine. And you can learn something about arguing for women from the conversation that's taking place here. And so up first, we've got AOC coming through. You would think you've got women complaining and saying, hey, if I'm in a bathroom, I don't want to be in a bathroom with someone who might still have male anatomy, someone who might even still look like a male. I actually think that this creates an opportunity for creeps to potentially say that they're the other gender and just be hanging out in the women's restroom. This makes me uncomfortable to have biological males in the ladies' restroom. And you would think, point for the people making that claim, that's reasonable. But here is AOC with the rebuttal telling you why it's actually more dangerous for women to take the approach that biological males who identify as female should not be allowed to use the women's restroom. Let's play it from AOC.
trans is disgusting.
I got you guys. No sound. Let's play it again. My apologies.
What Nancy Mace and what Speaker Johnson are doing are endangering all women and girls. Because if you...
You know what? Let's, Logan Walls is, Logan Wilson is on the money today. That was purposeful, as I wanted to give you guys another moment of silence. And why not let's all have that moment of silence together. Let me know if we got the audio now. The moment of silence is over. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a quick moment because I have ADD, but I think we have sound now. Let me know if you guys can hear it.
Ask them, what is your plan on how to enforce this? They won't come up with an answer. And what it inevitably results in are women and girls who are primed for assault because people are going to want to check their private parts in suspecting who is trans and who is cis and who's doing what. And so the idea that Nancy Mace wants little girls and women to drop trow in front of who? An investigator? Who would that be? In order, because she wants to suspect and point fingers at who she thinks is trans, is disgusting. It is disgusting. And frankly, all it does is allow these Republicans to go around and bully any woman who isn't wearing a skirt because they think she might not look woman enough. People have a right to express themselves, to dress how they want, and to be who they are. And if a woman doesn't look woman enough to a Republican, they want to be able to inspect her genitals to use a bathroom. It's disgusting. And everybody, no matter how you feel on this issue, should reject it completely. What are they doing? They're doing this so that Nancy Mace can make a buck and send a text and fundraise off an email. They're not doing this to protect people. They're endangering women. They're endangering girls of all kinds. And everybody should reject it. It's gross. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there you have it. AOC putting forward the argument that the keeping biological males out of the ladies' restroom is actually more dangerous. Guys, we have a great bitch off on our hands. Isn't this wonderful? You argue the most extreme thing that will never happen and combat who is actually making who feel uncomfortable. I mean, watching the news now, this is like being in a relationship. You can learn something, lads, about the way that these people argue. You go to the most extreme, no, you're actually out there making me feel uncomfortable. And now, this is tough, because if you just want to go by logic and objective standards, so if the entire thing is that we shouldn't be looking at people and questioning, like, what if I would just want to be a lady for an hour? For an hour, when AOC is using the restroom, I'd like to identify as a lady, and so I decide to throw on my wig, and I go into the bathroom with AOC, and I'm loitering around this bathroom, and then I go, how dare you question my identity? Are you saying I don't look feminine enough for the 1 hour that I'd like to be feminine? So I think AOC's got a bit of an issue here that the logic doesn't necessarily follow through. So the standard should just be anyone that identifies as lady, we shouldn't ask any questions whatsoever, no matter how manly they look? Is that the way it should work? Or do you need some sort of credentialing, even according to the AOC system, of how are we going to enforce this, where you have to spend a period of time as a lady in order to be credentialed for using the ladies' restroom? Do you have to have spent some time having gotten the hormones? Do you have to actually put in the time to do your makeup? Do you have to actually have had anatomy removed? So we're going to end up with some sort of an enforcement problem here no matter what. And I don't think AOC just wants to go by the standard of, hey, if you just want to say you're a lady, then it's fair game in the ladies' restroom. Because then can I just do a half hour? How long do you spend, pampering your tits in a locker room? Can I just be a lady when AOC is showering? Is that an okay standard? I identify as a lady whenever AOC is taking a shower or doing her makeup. For that period of time, I'm not even going to put on a wig. I identify as a bald lady with a beard, a patchy beard. We're working on it though. We're going to fill in the sides. You just have to, you gotta just set your intentions. I learned this from Bobby the Bank. Go get your sheathunderwear.com, promo code RYM for 20% off the greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls. Man, you just got to set your intention. We're going to end up with a full, nice, robust beard to make up for the lack of hair that's on my head. We're going to get there. I'm going to be one of these bald guys with a beard. Anyways, you've got AOC here commenting on why biological males being able to use the women's restroom is actually better and safer for women, because otherwise the only other alternative is going to be some sort of a system where we have to inspect anatomy in order to ensure, and then you're going to have little girls walking into, firstly, I think like under a certain age, we're not really, you end up with kids in the wrong bathrooms because of the parents that they're out with. And the TSA is already touching my junk, so, you know, how much money, I would say let's just put the money into better bathrooms in the individual stalls than actual inspectors. But AOC going with the rebuttal and saying why it's actually more dangerous to keep biological males out of bathrooms, and you will actually make more women uncomfortable if we try and create this standard. And now, with the rebuttal from the far right, we've got Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't know that it's fair to call her far right, but anyways, you know, we got women arguing who's more uncomfortable. And so here, taking the other side of it, is Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about how biological males who identify as female in the ladies' room is actually literal assault. Everyone, you got to go as dramatic as possible. We're taking extremes here. And so here is Marjorie Taylor Greene.
The first trans member of Congress. He identifies himself as Sarah McBride. His real name is Tim McBride. So little Timmy is now going to be a member of Congress in January. And little Timmy thinks he's going to come in and stand at we don't have urinals in the ladies' room. He's going to be standing in a toilet, apparently, and trying to use the restroom with the rest of us women. Let me tell you, this is an assault. I'm not kidding you. It is like a physical assault for a man to come in, charging into our private places, bathrooms, locker rooms, our gyms, places that are designated specifically for women only.
Does he get to work out in the gym of the house for the women?
He can go to the members gym, which is both sexes can go to the members gym. But there is a women's gym. He cannot go in there. That is where our showers and locker rooms are, and there are not doors to the shower room. And anyways, he doesn't belong in there, period. And so my specific question was, are we as women going to be left to physically defend ourselves from a man that has no respect for us as women? And as a matter of fact, is so sick and mentally ill that he thinks he's a woman, dresses like a woman, calls himself a woman, and has the audacity to come and charge in. That's an assault. I see it as a physical assault when he is coming in our bathroom where we are in a position of weakness. That is absolutely unacceptable. I asked Speaker Johnson what the men, our top three in leadership are men. Our speaker, our leader, and our whip, all three men. It's time for men in this country to defend women from these sick, mentally ill men. I am so fed up with it, Steve. Thankfully, I'm going to report to all of you.
There you go. Everyone, it's an uncomfortable off of everyone playing the most extreme card. AOC, hey, if we try and initiate this standard, it's going to lead to little girls having their genitalia inspected before they can use the restroom. And then MTG going, this is a literal assault. I do not respect this in any capacity. You are a man with mental illness, and why should I have to deal with a man with mental illness when I'm trying to shower or use the restroom? We're taking the two extremes of this one. We're butting heads. We're trying to decide who should have the right to feel comfortable. And that's why I'm saying, I guess this is good that this is happening in Congress, because maybe we should have one set standard. Or maybe this is a states' rights issue. Maybe it's like the abortion thing, or maybe this is proof of why government should be as localized as possible without one single standard. Because I guess if you want to live in liberal hellholes, which include that people just total freedom for the bathrooms, you should be able to vote with your feet and go, you know what? I really liked living in Vermont until every single time I tried to use a bathroom, there were a bunch of dudes in there and I didn't feel uncomfortable. And then you can find out how many people actually like these things. So, if anything, maybe this is just an argument for how localized government should be. But in the meantime, I'm going to put forward what I think might be a solution. And, listen, there is an argument here also that this is why we should just keep the ugly people at home. But there's something to be said for just like keeping a low profile. Like maybe we're allowed to say, hey, we prefer that biological males are not in the ladies' restroom. And so maybe at a minimum that prevents, because sometimes you go to the locker room and you get these old guys who are just fanning out their assholes, and it's kind of gross, but I guess it's their right in the locker room. And people, they break locker room etiquette all the time, particularly the elderly. The way that they're drying their saggy nuts, the way that they're displaying their disgusting buttholes. But like, I guess you shouldn't be able to be in the ladies' restroom with your dick out and then complaining or trying to educate a child about how that's actually your lady dick. And I guess at some point, if you really look alarmingly unfeminine, you could understand why, even though you choose to identify as a different gender, it might make people uncomfortable. And so then there's something to be said for when you're doing something that's not standard or the norm, trying to just keep a low profile. And so in that case, I guess what I'm trying to say, and it's horrible, but if you're passing enough that people won't otherwise realize or take issue, or you're being discreet in your usage of bathrooms, why is anyone calling you out on it? Every once in a while, I even once had, I've told the story at LaGuardia where a bunch of women ended up in the men's room. They're having a full-scale conversation, but it's like, even, I guess as a dude, you could probably get away with occasionally using a women's restroom if you keep a low enough profile. But if you're in there, getting out of the shower, hanging chow, trying to make conversation, it's like even within the men's locker room, what I'm trying to say is that there's just a standard of etiquette where it's like even in the men's locker room, like you could be a gay dude, but like, and you're allowed in the locker room, but you shouldn't just be staring at or like hitting on me. You know, if you're a gay, like even as a dude, if some guy with a giant wiener walks by, I can sneak a peek and imagine what my life would be like if I had that giant wiener, but I can't spend the entire time just walking around and asking him questions about his giant wiener. So I'm saying that there seems to be an etiquette that goes above and beyond just the objective standard of male, female, and just, hey, don't be a creep. And so maybe we can enforce that. And I guess you can make a complaint against individuals if they are biological males who are not keeping a low profile. It's like just flush quickly and move on. And if and if you're actually being weird about it, then yes, I guess people should be allowed to make a complaint. And there's something to be said for actually saying what the etiquette is. That like I guess it's kind of like the opposite of like the gay pride thing. That you went so far as to go like, I don't feel prideful about anything I do. I live a life of shame and low self-esteem, and that's the way that I operate. And then end up working hard to try and be better in life. So what I'm saying is like we don't need to be trans prideful. It could be like, all right, you're doing your thing and it's a little bit weird, and so you're making people uncomfortable. So keep a low profile. Which is different than, no, that is absolutely by every objective standard actually a lady because they identify that way. And so therefore, because they identify that way, like, in other words, if you got to come to one objective truth here, I think the biological reality makes more sense than, hey, I identify as the other one. And so even if it's making women uncomfortable in the locker room, you have to accept me because, like, how do you even put that one forward? So if you have two ways of approaching the problem, one is the biological reality of you were born one way and so that's the way you are, versus, well, I identify as the other way. Like, I don't think you could put if you identify the other's way, but it makes other people uncomfortable in this instance, that doesn't seem to me like, well, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable because that person said that that's the way they are. And then how much of a slippery slope does that get to of people like me putting on a wig and going, hey, I identify as a lady for the 30 minutes that AOC is taking a shower. I don't understand how you don't get there. And then, well, then you're going to need some sort of a standard here. All right. I think that's all I had to say about that. But just to kind of wrap it up, I was wrong. I don't think Congress should just build a private bathroom and then go, all right, well, we moved on from this. I think if the rest of us are going to have to confront this, then Congress should have to confront it as well. And maybe we can actually have this argument and come to a better conclusion about how we want to treat this situation. And like I said, maybe this will be the thing that gets us more bathrooms. All right, let's take a couple comments, and then I got a couple other topics that I want to discuss. And then I got Steven, the Wonder Boy non-scientist, waiting to get on the show with some stuff, that might get the channel rebanned. Meatballs, Robbie, the no audio on Clips Bernstein. Listen, if you guys knew what happened behind the scenes on other shows that aren't live, and how often, people click wrong buttons and you don't get sound, but we're live. We do it live because it's more fun. We're able to take the comments and you get the warts and alls of these occasional or weekly or every episode issues that we're not editing out. Runaway slob. Nobody needs to check in their pants. 100% of the world can recognize a transmissional at face value. Even ugly fatso ladies are obviously more female than those identifying themselves. I don't know that that's necessarily true. Really offend calling me the GOAT. Benny the Jet says he wants to apply for the official gender inspector. Runaway Slav, TSA gets to inspect my genitals at the airport by hand. I don't do the x-ray machine. How much shit do they give you if you don't want to do the x-ray machine? If you go, hey, I don't want you guys sending those cancerous rays at me and looking at my little putty dick in my sheaths. Do they give you a hard time, or do they just go, all right, no problem, we'll fill you down, and then you get to stare at the guy as, he's the gay one. He's got a job where he has to touch your junk. You're just trying to fly somewhere. So if you ask me between the two people and who's gayer, the person who has their junk being touched or the person that has to touch junk, it's the guy that has to touch junk because he chose to take a job that includes touching junk. He doesn't have to work that job. And he's on the government, so that's gayer. If you're on the government side of it, that's being gayer. If I'm just trying to fly and passively you're touching my junk, I'm just having my junk touched, and I don't want it touched. You actually want to work the job where you have to have junk touched. Now you got to ask, well, I guess, did you choose to fly? But I didn't choose to fly to be touching junk. I don't know. You know what? I might have too many deep thoughts on this episode. Chris Lates, audio problems are a cornerstone of the show. Low production value is more relatable. Fair enough, I'd rather clean it up. MTG's only crime is her infidelities in her marriage and her personal trainer. What happened to the sanctity of marriage? You see, you're throwing yourself right into the lady argument, and you're going, how dare you play the upper card like you're the cornerstone of morality. Frank Stone, State Department, FBI, and CIA are doing this just like they are doing in various countries in Europe. All right, let's take one more comment and then moving on. Spike, make the TSA homeless again. Jamie Johnson calling me hot. I'll take it. And then matzo balls. LOL, meatballs appropriate. I'm round and I am not Jewish. All right, next topic. Moving on from the transgender bathroom debate. robsnewsroom at gmail.com if you think I've missed something in this. Oh, we're actually not moving on from this. This is a fun one. This is a fun video on the topic. Here we go.
I dare you to try and stop me from going into a women's bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. I dare you to try and stop a transgender woman in my presence from using the bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. This is a call to action and a call to arms to everybody within the United States that are scared, worried, have children that are transgender, lesbian, bi, or gay. This is a call to action. You need to arm up. I dare you to try and stop me from going.
Are you guys telling me that there's no sound on that? Because that's that sounds I changed no settings. Before I accidentally had it muted. Now it's unmuted. There's no reason why there wouldn't be sound on that. Is that someone just messing me with in the chat, or was there actually no sound on that clip? 100% was sound on that. Oh, thank you. Some guys just messing with me for no reason. Started halfway through. All right, let me replay it and then I'll comment.
Going into a women's bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. I dare you to try and stop a transgender woman.
Is there anything more manly than this?
Don't tell me I can't use the ladies' room! I will shoot all of you! I will stand your ground!
Talk about talking like a real dude.
I pack my gun, and you will not get in my way as I shit in the ladies' room.
There you go. Really adding some clarity to this is a very manly, non-passing 55-year-old transgender person letting you know that if you try and stop them from using the ladies' room, you will have hell to pay.
in my presence from using the bathroom, it will be the last mistake you ever make. This is a call
Because this is the way women talk.
to action and a call to arms to everybody within the United States that are scared, worried, have children that are transgender, lesbian,
I'm a lady, goddammit, and I will shit where I want.
bi, or gay. This is a call to action. You need to arm up. Plain and simple. Go out, buy a gun. Learn how to use it efficiently.
I will shoot women that tell me I can't use the stall that I want. Do you know what I paid on these hair extensions?
Through and through. Because the time to act is now. You need to protect yourself, and you need to protect your fellow transgender brothers and sisters and theys and thems. You need to protect the rest.
All right, next topic. Episode brought to you by YoKratom.com, home of the $60 kilo, and the only place in the entire world that you can get an entire kilo of Kratom for just $60. MSNBC staffers in a panic as NBC parent Comcast plans to spin off channel and possibly change its name. Elon Musk said that he was considering buying it. And I tweeted at him, and everyone, you guys should tweet him at as well. I said, give me the 8 p.m. primetime show, or give me the Sunday 8 o'clock comedy time. For literally 5% of what they pay Rachel Maddow, I can do a daily show, and I can get myself staff writers. We can film sketches. We could go big. Elon Musk, I'd like to throw my hat into the ring for ideally the primetime slot at 8 p.m. or any other time. You can put me on at 2 in the morning. I'll take that job. But anyways, if I was on MSNBC and I was an anchor there, at this point, you guys should go down swinging. What are you doing apologizing and kissing the knee when you might lose your jobs and get fired anyways? Like, if you're Rachel Maddow and you just took your decrease from $30 million a year to $25 million a year, and then you're just going to get fired anyways, why get bitched out over the $5 million? Why accept the lesser salary to just get fired anyways? Or if you're Joe Scarborough, why kiss the ring of Donald Trump and then finally turn around for your last 3 months of having a job to go, oh, he actually was great, and then get fired and then have to get on the internet and scream what your actual opinion was the whole time? I recommend to everyone that works at MSNBC, and you guys won't do this because you're all a bunch of bitches, and that's why you have those jobs, so I guess your strategy for life has worked better than mine, but I'm just saying at this point, just go down swinging. Your network might not exist in the future anyways, so don't let them, if you actually had beliefs that Donald Trump was a Russian asset, or whatever your beliefs are, whatever the propaganda spin that you were trying to run with, don't let them bitch you out now. Don't spend the last 3 months that you get to be on television just trying to play ball and take the orders and make the misdirection. Sometimes it's over anyways. You've lost your credibility doing the full 180 to this other perspective, or just trying to run whatever the new talking points are. At some point, you're circling the drain. There's a great George Carlin interview where he talks about how the country's just circling the drain. That's where I just pulled that out of my brain for. But you've seen this. Sometimes like a TV show's over and they just keep making changes. It's like the end of the Larry Sanders Show when they take away his desk and they tell him that he has to sit in the chairs, and they keep trying to make these changes, and then he just realizes, nah, I'm not doing this. I'm going to do the show that I'm going to do it. And if that's the end of it, that's the end of it. But we're going down with style and grace. And so for all the MSNBC people that I know regularly listen to the show because they want actual news and information, they're like, man, we get everything wrong every single day. Why don't we check out the Run Your Mouth podcast so we can actually get information right, including how to learn how to have moments of silences and admit that you were wrong. There's a lot that these news anchors tune into the Run Your Mouth podcast so that they can learn about themselves and how to better operate their news programming. Or sometimes, they come over here to find out what's right so that they could say the opposite because that's what their audience prefers. So I'm just saying, if you're out there, you might as well go down swinging. All right, we've got Runaway Slav saying, Morning Joe definitely killed that intern, 2.5 million NDA hush money. Not familiar with that case, but it sounds like a fun one. And his wife Mika's father was close friend and financier of Osama bin Laden, a heavenly marriage. Frank Stone, get media people's home addresses in front of migrant social club eyes. And Amba Bamba, my husband sees Rachel Maddow in the W Village regularly. I've asked him to please tell her I love it when she cries on camera. All right, next news story. And then we've got a couple more to cover. And then we've got good old Steven, the Wonder Boy non-scientist, coming on. This was from, firstly, you've got Trump's pick for leading the military, running the military. I don't know the position. Pete Hegseth. So, of course, all of a sudden it gets into the newspapers that some lady had accused him of rape, and that when it was investigated at the time, it got thrown out. But, of course, you've got that in the newspapers now. And then you've got this. This was from the New York Times. A hacker gained access to damaging information about Matt Gaetz, Trump's selection for attorney general, including testimony from a woman who said that she had sex with Gaetz when she was 17. And so I want to put forward, should the ethics committee be held responsible for covering up the crimes of Matt Gaetz? I mean, if we're going to accept that there are true crimes, including sex with a 17-year-old, that were committed by Matt Gaetz, and that the attorney general investigated it for years and didn't bring charges, and then you've got the committee that does the ethics review and decides not to release the report, well, if actual crimes were committed, why aren't we going after the government for covering up said crimes? And if no crimes were committed, then why is this being reported and influencing people's jobs? Doesn't this gray area just bother your soul? Doesn't it just annoy the OCD in you of, shouldn't there be one clear standard here? It was the joke I made in the intro, if you guys didn't watch it, of if you've had a sexual assaulter and you're trying to get justice, you have to convince them to run for high cabinet positions within the Republican Party so that the media will actually report on it. How is it that all of a sudden it's like, is there just sexual assault amongst us all of the time? And just we have police systems, police departments that do nothing about it. And so we only find out about these things when people actually run for office? Or do suddenly these claims just start to surface as they've realized that this is a good way to silence individuals, shame their names, and get them out of potential public positions? I was listening to Megyn Kelly talking about how this Fox News anchor, Pete Hegseth, is kind of a glorious piece of shit. I don't live my life this way, but I don't have as handsome of a face as he did. Maybe if I had as handsome of a face as he did, I'd be 4 marriages deep, 12 kids in, and, cheating on every single road trip. But, I got to work with the face. You got to work with the face that you have. And you can't fault the people with nicer hairlines and nicer faces and go, oh, I'm so much more moral than you, because you're not living with that guy's face. It's like saying, hey, you wouldn't buy a Lamborghini if you had $100 million. Maybe you would. Maybe you'd actually find out it's a lot of fun. You really liked it. You don't have that much money, so you're not buying those things. This guy has a divine face, divine jaw, divine haircut. I can't say the way I would operate. I'd like to think I wouldn't, but I'm not walking around with what that guy's got. But oh, that's great. Oliver Closet. Robbie has a face made for porches. I love that. Someone put that on a bumper sticker. R&W saying that my face is great. Thank you, sir. The point I'm trying to say kind of goes back to even what, with the transgender thing. Doesn't it annoy you living in a world where we can't come to one single standard on things that shouldn't be this silly? Or in these cases, do we have government covering up the crimes of people? In which case, there should be outraged over the fact that we have a government that's covering up the crimes of people sleeping with 17-year-olds? Or do we have constant chatter and noise about sexual assault that didn't happen that's ruining people's careers and censoring better voices? All right, 3 more news topics, and then hopefully Steven reappears. I took this from Twitter Gronk. Ray and Mayorkas decline public testimony on homeland threats, which I love. They're like, guys, we're leaving office anyways. Do we really have to go over all the things that we did wrong again? Do I really have to show up for another congressional hearing and say, due to ongoing investigations, I wouldn't categorize that way. I wouldn't categorize that way. No, we put forward with the best intentions. We make the greatest of efforts. Us as a department, it's like everyone's pulling over the border. We take the job very seriously. No one's saying you didn't take it seriously. We put forward our best efforts because of an ongoing investigation. So apparently they were called. They said, hey, we'd like to rake you guys over the coals one more time. And both of them were like, guys, we did it. We were here 4 years. You didn't actually bust us. Why do I have to show up again and go through this whole song and dance of listening to you guys yell at me for all the things that I got wrong? I'm just going to sit that out. I'm leaving for retirement. The job's over. I quit. I put in my 2 weeks 3 weeks ago, which means I actually quit 6 months ago. And you guys think I'm going to show up again to go through this shit? No. All right, one more. This is an odd story. I think
Steven, if you're there, I'll have you on. Oh, wait. One more, and then Steven. And I've spoken to this before, but this was also, saw it on Twitter, Trump to revive Keystone XL pipeline on day one, which is now more than ever. If you guys are out there, you're a retired hedge fund person, the only way to make money is you got to figure out how to front run government legislation. That's probably what's going on in Bitcoin right now. You got this chatter that they're going to make a strategic Federal Reserve. Gensler's on the way out, and Donald Trump and RFK Jr. got all this money loaded up in the cryptos. So, government might start buying in the institutional investors. But that's why I would like to listen, I've thrown out great ideas. Greater carbon reducing trees. That was a good one. Windmills for urban development. That was a good one. I've had some great scams over the years. No one takes me seriously, and we could all be wealthy. Do you understand we could have better production value than MSNBC on the Run Your Mouth podcast if somebody started backing these investments. And that's why the new one is we've got to create a hedge fund called the Fruntrunners Fund. And what we do is we just try and forecast and place bets amongst government legislation that we see coming down the pipeline. I could have told you that Donald Trump was winning the last election, but what were the odds on it? By the time the election was happening, you weren't getting a good return on your investment, but we should have why didn't we think to front run the Keystone Pipeline? What companies had those contracts? That was an easy one. We could have been placing those bets 4 or 5 months ago. I said at the beginning of the year that Donald Trump was running the election. Where were we on that? I mean, that was a simple play. Front run these things. Front run natural gas. Front run the drilling. We know what's coming. All right. And now, Steven, this is actually a topic that you're an expert on. So let's bring Steven on to the show. Steven, it's a pleasure to have you back on. It's been a while. Before I bring up this news story, how you doing, bud?
Oh man, I'm doing great. While cleaning the room for the video cast, I found some CBD lip balm. So I threw that on. It hit me a little too hard, but so I ran to the fridge. I found some caffeine shots, and now I'm back on the way up the hill. So we're good. I'm ready to deliver.
There you go. How does a CBD lip balm hit you too hard? I mean, I've seen the way that you pound marijuana. You're no lightweight, my friend.
Yeah, that was Steven 2.0, although Steven 3.0 talks less about it.
Okay, fair enough. So, Steven, you are an expert in storing cum, and not just that. I mean, if people want to freeze things, that was your old business. Do you still have that business, or are you now full-time Cell Shot Nutrition?
Yeah, a full time on the nutrition side of things, but I still have the knowledge to freeze any type of animal cum for however long we can keep the liquid nitrogen flowing.
There you go. So this is a wild article. It was in the New York Times. Giving parents ash, should they freeze their dead son's sperm? And that's a good-looking soldier right there. And so what they're doing is, after death, they can, I guess, go in with a needle, go through your balls, pull your sperm out, and send it to your family. So I guess if you had a loved one that you never procreated with, you could still have offspring after death. And now what's weird about that is that they're asking about the morality of basically the medical rights of the deceased, and that it's kind of like organ harvesting, of that they didn't really give you permission to do this beforehand. And now I just want to point out, jerking off's not that difficult. So right. If you are a soldier and they have the option for freezing cum, I don't know why you can't just do it before you go out to battle. I mean, the old-fashioned way is you might just make a decision with your wife, hey, we'd like to have a kid, so why don't we get on that? But I guess you do have a wife and you're not there yet in life, and so you're going out to battle and you're freezing your cum. And by the way, Steven, I just want to put this out there. If I die tomorrow, please take my cum and give it to whoever wants it. Procreate the earth with children that I won't have to deal with or raise. Please.
Yeah, so one, that's not a crazy thing. There have been plenty of doctors that have inseminated women with their own semen instead of like...
What? That's some sociopath shit, but that's also good genes. I'm just talking from a sick Darwin standpoint. The sociopath will just impregnate people with that's serial killer shit right there.
Like a bitch Attila the Hun. Instead of conquering and raping everyone, you just sneaky do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the rate limiting step for that would be dry ice. So like when people labs would ship me their cells from wherever in the United States, it would have to be overnight or 2 to 3 days at worst on dry ice. And the whole thing is the dry ice is going to totally evaporate within that 2 to 3 days, and it costs a lot, but that's usually how you would do it. But to be perfectly honest with you, back in the day, you can get away with shipping specimens on room temperature. Like I've even had cells stay over the weekend that you can still culture. The big thing there is contamination, because when things thaw, then they're more likely to get infected.
Well, I was thinking of a movie here where the Palestinians, let's say, I don't think they're smart enough for this, and but
Shots fired.
The head of Hamas, they find out that they're doing this, and they secretly replace the sperm with their own sperm, and then they track down their kids at age 18 after they've been raised as Israeli citizens, and now they've got their soldiers on the inside. Cue it up. Tell me that's not a great Hollywood movie.
Oh man, and see, I think it would be cool to have put some type of like time bomb in the genome. So like when someone reaches a certain age or perhaps puberty, something kicks in that then makes them like psycho or something. You see what I'm saying?
Ooh. Oh, so they actually, instead of putting their own sperm in there so that their kids are being born as Israelis, as raised as Israelis, and then they find out at age 18 where they get, because the way I envision it is they kidnap them, they bring them back to Gaza, they wake up panicked, and then they explain the situation, and the kid can't deal with it, and he goes, it's not true, but then
it is true.
Yeah, and then they win him over, and then he goes, all right, it's my birthright, and then they trade him back to the Israelis, and now they've got a man on the inside. I'm just basically rewriting dumb Russian movies that I've seen, the Homeland storylines. But I like your storyline where they hijack the delivery and they fuck with the sperm so that the kids at age 18 become psychopaths.
Right.
I mean, we're not actually making these recommendations. We're just, like I said, Steven only claims not to still smoke a lot of weed.
100%.
All right, let's get into it. So last week I hit you up because there was this. Listen, I want to preface this conversation with Steven that during the COVID times, both myself and Steven got quite obsessed with debunking the information that was put in front of us. And for 2 years, you could have gotten some of the best information about COVID and the lies that you were being told on this program. And usually I have a lot of humility. I do not make bold claims about our analysis. I hide behind the fact, hey, I'm talking out of my ass when we're making jokes. But the truth was we really got quite obsessed. We dug in. I did a lot of my own homework at some point through all of it. You had hit me up and I was bringing you on the show for segments. And we were really in the thick of it. And I stand by everything that, we did our homework at the time. It's now 3 years later, and not that I don't think that there should be justice or that there aren't important issues. It doesn't affect my life, and I'm not sitting at home angry all day and channeling that rage towards researching, hey, why these people are wrong. And so I don't put the same stamp of approval as I did 3 years ago about the things that we were talking about, because I'm not as in it now as I was then. And so if we manage to get something wrong now, don't listen to this and go, hey, these people are always idiots and they always got things wrong. I am telling you that we are not as into this topic as we were 3 years ago, because 3 years ago they shut down the world on us and it was bananas. And I had a lot of time on my hands and I was focusing my rage towards reading medical stuff that was way over my head. But last week, because like I said, it keeps being fascinating to me, will there be unintended consequences or things, bad medical outcomes from having vaccinated the population with the experimental mRNA vaccines? I'm not saying that there are. YouTube censors. I'm not saying that there are. I'm saying it's a fascinating question of will there be, or will there be evidence of it because we did something new? That's a question. It's a reasonable question to go, I am fascinated by, did somebody make a mistake? I'm not saying they made a mistake. I'm saying it's fascinating to ask it. Steven, do you understand that? We're simply...
and we're just really going off studies right here. But just to set the stage, I think it's important to remember that 3 years ago, we did talk about the original Pfizer study that got the Pfizer mRNA COVID-19 vaccine approved. And in that study, there were more people that suffered death from heart problems in the vaccine group than died of COVID in the unvaccinated group.
So, but now we've got new information, which was the Lancet put out a study And I'll give people the short, and then I'll let you
Right.
give kind of the more long-winded summary of the study. But in this
Oh yeah, go for it.
please, no, go for it. I've basically just brought you on the show to talk at you. So yes, please.
Oh no. I just thought, like, I think it's good to set the stage. So the Lancet is a medical journal. It's not necessarily a science journal. The difference is science journals get into mechanism and causes. Science journals are going to look at cells and then animal studies and then relate that to human studies and show you how the chemicals work at the most intricate, boring level for most people. Medical journals look at from the top down, and they're going to look at what we see in the clinic, what's happening, and why do we think this is happening. Let's look back in time and try to make correlations so then we can study things more. So that's kind of the area that the Lancet's in. But furthermore, this specific paper has had trouble with pulling papers, corruption, and politicalness long before COVID, more so than just about any other paper. So that's kind of the stage.
Okay, and so what the Lancet looked at was, if you remember, one of the screwy things that happened during COVID was that you were considered unvaccinated in the first 14 days after you had been vaccinated, which means, let's just say, if 1 out of 10 people died the day after they got the shot, all those people would be counted as unvaccinated deaths.
Right.
Now, up until now, there wasn't data of what was going on within those first 14 days. I do remember Alex Epstein, right? That was the guy who was doing some good COVID stuff.
Epstein, yeah. So the writer, right? The independent.
Yeah. I remember once he had found some leaked data from some clinic out in Denver that was suggesting that there were some problems within those first 14 days. Or the example that he gave was, imagine if there was an antidepressant that for the first 14 days that you were on it made you extremely depressed, but we didn't consider you to be on the antidepressant until after 14 days.
Yeah.
And a large amount of people were killing themselves within the first 14 days. Well, then how do you say that this is a good antidepressant if you're only looking at it from once it works 14 days out? That's not a good picture of how the thing is working. So apparently the Lancet study did attribute.
The Lancet's just the paper. It's actually the studies are done by independent universities or labs everywhere. Then they go to the Lancet and they say, hey, this is a paper I want to publish in your journal. Then the Lancet then sends that out to other researchers, mutually exclusive. And once they all agree, then it gets published in the Lancet as an organization, as a magazine.
Right. So just one amongst the many screwy things that happened with the COVID data, one of them was that for the first 14 days after the shot, you were considered unvaccinated.
Right. And it goes fed into the numbers of all of them. Yeah.
And then this Lancet article, I believe,
from Peter McCullough, right,
attributed 500,000 deaths from the vaccine within the first 14 days. Was that the number?
That is a what do you call it? An estimation based on VAERS. That's actually not the takeaway. And the real significance of the Peter McCullough paper is actually showing mechanism. So it's actually showing, like, is there a link between the COVID-19 vaccine and these autopsies that we're looking at and the pathology of the autopsies? And that doesn't sound that interesting, but that's extremely important because it's not correlated. You can say these vaccines are correlated and you can wave your hands all you want, but when a paper comes out like this that links the COVID-19 vaccine with certain types of heart problems that through like extensive peer-reviewed papers that they looked at in the autopsies, then you can't wave your hands and refute that the vaccines are causing death. And then they made some extrapolations.
So can you give it to me straight? What's the bombshell here? What's the big juicy takeaway? Or maybe there isn't one.
It really is more of the science angle about getting to mechanism. So this isn't Peter McCullough. Peter McCullough looked at 44 different papers from people all over the United States, mutually exclusive. That's why this is so powerful. And they looked at over 300 deaths from COVID, but these deaths they did an autopsy of. So they literally cut them open and looked at every single bit. What happened? Did the vaccine kill them? And why did the vaccine kill them? Over half of them died of cardiovascular events that were quite similar, from blood clots to strokes, which is interesting, right? Which is very interesting. And then the other half died of various other organs. So that's pretty significant.
And that was within the first 14 days?
Let me get to that. Yes. So something I found interesting is the average death time was literally 13.8 days. Yeah,
and meaning that none of those deaths during the whole COVID time would have been counted as vaccinated deaths.
Because it's an average. You would argue only half did. Yeah, but a large portion did not. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give it to me straight, because I'm not sure I follow. So what? Because the Lancet thing was making the rounds, or maybe I just saw it on Vigilant News or Vigilant Fox, where there was a bombshell. So what's the big takeaway that the plebs like me that don't understand science should know?
That it's mechanistically shown that if the COVID-19 vaccine is going to hurt you, it's going to happen within roughly the first 14 days. It's going to be one of the first or second shots. And from that, it's most likely going to be a cardiovascular issue, and it's not going to be random. These aren't just people's autoimmune systems. This is a targeted drug that then has an effect, and they're not really making a statement on the prevalence, but it's actually more important. They're saying this drug causes this.
Got it.
Which was not fucking told to us, which is a big deal.
Is there an actual number of deaths that they attributed?
They give you 500,000, but that's based on rough calculations using VAERS. So I mean, that's not what's really worth reporting here. Is that they looked at independent autopsies all over the United States that all found a majority of these deaths are cardiovascular issues that happened at a very similar time right after the COVID-19 vaccine, that has to do with the spike protein that also causes cardiovascular issues, as well as the whole mRNA nature of releasing how much spike protein in some people, and the fact that nurses might not nurses, just who's ever doing the injection might not inject it correctly.
All right. And now we've got real offended, getting annoyed. He gave you the bombshell already. And then saying the heart problems were linked to the vaccines on separate accounts, outright fraud.
Yeah, so it's more of a official way to do it. But one other thing I would like to share that I found more interesting than this paper was a month ago, our FDA funded their own study into this and released it quietly. No one's talking about it. If you want to look it up, it's called Cardiac Manifestations and Outcomes After COVID Vaccine in Young. And the FDA found that young white males were targeted most by myocarditis. 70% of people that got myocarditis were white, 90% of them were male. So if you had a conspiracy theory of targeting white males, so it's right there. But furthermore, the FDA also found that in this kind of independent study, they wouldn't attribute any deaths to it. But they're at the FDA's conclusion of this independent study that they had Ivy League schools do, found that myocarditis is a vaccine-related problem, and more study and clinical surveillance is needed. And this was released last month.
All right, and now you had another crazy story out of Japan that they were using some super mRNA, but I'll let you share that story.
Let's get into it. So if you want to look it up, about like 100 years ago, there's this guy named Spiegelman's monster, and he created a strand of RNA, and RNA is just like DNA. You see the double helix, it's just RNA is just one of those. So think of RNA as kind of like a rope of chemicals that is kind of a genetic messenger. And so what he created is a strand of mRNA rope that when you mix it just with other chemicals, this rope actually then recreates itself from those chemicals. We're not talking about anything that's alive. We're literally talking about a very specific strand of mRNA that can be turned into proteins and signal our bodies to do something that can replicate itself if it has its smaller parts around it. Very similar to mad cow disease. If you guys have heard of that, that's called a prion or a prion disease. And that's a protein disease. And they're misfolded proteins that actually, when they're around other proteins, they actually cause them to misfold. So mad cow disease isn't caused by a bacteria or virus. It's caused by a non-living misfolded chemical in a protein that then causes other proteins to misfold, and that causes the whole brain to turn to mush. And very similarly, we have this type of mRNA vaccine they created in Japan because they're such geniuses. They wanted to create their RNA to not only go in your body, but once it was inside your body, they wanted their mRNA to replicate. So then you get extra vaccine. So instead of having to inject you with all the boosters, they're essentially having the boosters happen within your body by that vaccine they gave you, that chemical RNA rope that can signal your body to make the spike protein will all of a sudden start replicating. And what I'm describing is very similar to a virus, right? So in Japan, they thought, well, why are we giving people all these boosters? Let's just create an RNA strand that replicates called a replicon. and let's inject that into people. So then more of the protein will be expressed, and people will be better prepared for it. And so what's turned out in Japan is that enough people like me and Rob have got out there and said, hey, wait a minute, we probably shouldn't be injecting ourselves with foreign strands of RNA that can self-replicate inside our goddamn bodies. That is ridiculous. That is something way out of left field. And that's and enough people are understanding this. And what we just covered, they wouldn't even cover at a graduate level molecular biology class. This is like really heady, interesting, like corner of the room stuff. And so now they're injecting that into people in Japan. And there are now businesses and places in Japan that won't let vaccinated people with this special vaccine come in because they're afraid that they might get infected by a self-replicating RNA. So how funny is that we've gone from a spot where if you have COVID or any variation of it, you can't go anywhere. But now in Japan, if you got a certain type of vaccine, they won't let you in. But if you have COVID, they'll let you in.
And how is it that you could potentially is that if like your blood got on someone, or like how can you, if you were vaccinated with the self-replicating RNA, how do you, what is the mechanism that you could be transferring that?
Yeah. So just for mad cow disease, it would be having that misfolded protein touching your good proteins. So usually you might be able to eat that meat because your stomach would digest that mad cow disease protein. But let's say you had a cut on your head and some of that mad cow, something like that. But for this, it's, it's more of a thought experiment. It would have to be time and place perfect. They would have to get maybe like a blood, and there would have to be some type of particle carrying that self-replicating competent mRNA into someone else, and it would have to end up within them. So it's really more of a thought experiment, but the fact that they're doing what I described and that it is theoretically possible to get infected from a self-replicating RNA that they're injecting in themselves is really the take home. It's not so much that it's going to infect us all and kill us all. It's more like they're fucking crazy.
All right. And now let's go to, we've got RFK Jr. coming in saying he's going to clean up the health of the country. I've gone full hook, line, and sinker on that fluoride is bad for you, and I have no evidence or research on it. I have solely this that I'm going on, and this is not anything. But at one point, I find you've hung out with me. I'm actually a very high energy individual. I'm constantly moving around. If anything, I might, if I don't work out, I get a little too restless. You've been around me. I mean, I sleep normal hours, but if you've ever seen me in motion, I'm like a goldfish. I don't stop moving. Even now, I'm standing up. I'm pretty high energy.
We were hanging out smoking weed in Hollywood, and Rob's like, I want to go climb the hill. I'm like, what fucking hill? He's like, the hill. So we drove all the way to the bottom, really ritzy area where the Hollywood sign is, and Rob just like ran up it, and I'm like, all right, I guess we're doing it. And like, I'm almost falling up the hill, but yeah, true.
I also made you take me to the beach so I could do pull-ups. I get after it. All right. At one point, I found that I was finding myself to be uncharacteristically lethargic, and I stopped drinking my tap water, and I found that stopped that problem. Now, was I eating more unhealthy at the time? Were there other diet changes? I can't tell you, and I never tested my tap water to tell you what the fluoride levels are or if there was another issue with my tap water. I don't know any of this. I can just tell you, and I don't know that I'm being any healthier because now I drink a gallon of water about a day out of a plastic jug that I buy at the supermarket. For one, I'm overspending on water. I should be I should be doing something better than that. And the amount of microplastics that are probably floating around in my system, I don't know that I've taken a better approach. However, I will say I had a personal experience with tap water where I was like, I don't want to drink this anymore, and I felt an increase in my energy. Now, you are coming here to let us know that the fluoride shenanigans and claims is, you're calling malarkey on it. Like I said, I haven't delved into the storyline. I have jokes about it. I've got some good jokes I'm working on about the fluoride conspiracy. And I've heard people basically say it's a storyline of industrial waste. They didn't know what to do with, so they convinced basically the water departments to add it to the water. So you tell me, what's the story here with the fluoride?
Yeah. So I'm not making the giant claims here. What I'm really talking about is the study that everyone cites, including RFK, which is this massive government study that found that higher levels of fluoride are linked to lower IQ levels in children.
And that's just because dumber people are drinking tap water, whereas richer people have richer people who will test better for IQ.
But that doesn't mean it's not true, but that does mean that's not the study, and to me that means absolutely nothing. And I really like that you let me talk about the difference between a scientific journal and a medical journal. So this is something that we're talking about in the terms of a medical journal, but we should be first talking about it in the terms of a scientific journal. We should have like our skin cells and then treat them with no fluoride, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. And then from there, we'll take it to animals. And then from there, we'll compensate for long-term exposure. And then from there, you got to build a case and be very specific with what you're saying.
But there's something creepy as fuck to me that let's say you take it as fact. Once again, I'm talking outside of my lane. I don't know what fluoride is. From what I understand, it was some sort of an industrial waste. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's just some fancy legal title that they put on a chemical. I don't know. But just
an element, not even a chemical. Yeah.
Okay, but just to add something to the water supply, I guess without running the exact test that you just stated, I'm always against, like, why would you do something new unless you had the evidence that it was actually good? And so if you haven't run the exact study that you just said of actually seeing the exposure levels and what that looks like,
positives.
What was that?
It's not like the greater evil. There were positives, particularly with the teeth and remineralizing teeth. And
right.
So there were definitely positives, and like I definitely.
But there's fluoride in my toothpaste. Do I need more fluoride than what I'm brushing my teeth with? What?
Perhaps when we were first getting started, yes, and perhaps the fluoride also plays a role with like pH with the water. Perhaps there's some antimicrobial abilities that we're not sure of. I will say now, because of my other day job, I interact with a lot of people that do there's a water tower, so I interact with the guys that treat it. There's a lot of different chemistry that goes into treating our public waters, and I would like to hear from those guys first, because fluoride is not the only chemical that goes into our tap water. It's far from it. Right. And a lot of things do kind of go into it. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, but what I am saying is what I'm alarmed at is
that the one study that they're quoting is basically correlation bupkis.
100%. And it's alarm. Kids that drink fluoride that's twice higher than other places have a lot lower IQ, but that's because those children live in disenfranchised areas. The plumbing's worse, the water's worse, and poor people are
and you don't know that it's the fluoride. It could be the fact that they're eating nothing but chemicals. This is not a
test of fluoride. This is just a test of socioeconomic to intelligence, but you're doing it indirectly by looking at fluoride. I could also say, what type of ketchup do these people use, right? People that use Heinz have lower IQ than people that use, I don't know, nice ketchup, but that doesn't mean Heinz causes lower IQ.
Let's go. The Heinz people have higher IQ than the people that are using the knockoff ketchup.
100. Yeah, exactly. Right. Thank you. Exactly. But then the knockoff like Aldi ketchup, that doesn't mean they're stupider. That just means that they're just that you're testing something else. You're not testing whether the ketchup causes it.
Okay, I got Tight Screens coming in and saying that fluoride is biological warfare. Tight Screens,
that might
lay it on us. You're in the comments.
Yeah, how so? I'm interested. I'm open.
All right, and we've got Amba Bamba, also studies in court cases proving fluoride in tap water causes long-term bone and joint problems starting in children. Just brush your teeth with fluoride. You don't need more. Once again,
I perhaps agree with the second part of that. Now, as long as people are educated and fluoride is readily available to all of us, perhaps we don't need it in the water anymore, and people can do that. But I was just concerned because counties are now voting on it, and I don't really like counties voting on biochemical things that are very specific like this. Like, public health policy is important. Like, people vote for Obamacare. Okay, you voted for Obama, but that's more HR related. Like, I'm just a little apprehensive. I want to hear from the people that actually treat the water that are on the ground.
All right, Runaway Slav, chemical warfare, fluoride is an element, not a biological agent. We got a lot of debates going on in the chat. So
like this. This is fire.
I will sum up what your perspective is that the leading study, at least not to overstate it, the leading quoted study by RFK Jr., who's now, I guess at least talking about this cause of removing the fluoride. While there could be dangers to fluoride, the one study that he's working off of is flawed because it's really just a correlation of socioeconomic factors that poorer people have test for lower IQs.
Right. And for whatever reason, richer people are going to get their water delivered. Maybe it's just a cultural thing, but that's the way it is.
All right. That is, I think that's all I had to cover. Before we call it an episode, Steven, I have been loving the Cell Shot nutrition. I get the, I just like the straight energy drink. And I know it's got the L-theanine in it. I know it's got the sea moss in it. Give us the pitch. Why is it a better energy drink than when I'm crushing the Red Bulls or the other shenanigans?
Yeah, well, traditionally, energy drinks, the energy part is lacking. It's either just going to be caffeine and artificial sweeteners, or it's going to be way too much sugar that's even going to induce an insulin-like response and put you on the downward quick. So Cell Shots are interesting because there's 5 grams of sugar that will actually give you a little bit of a boost. There's also a nice amount of caffeine that's balanced out with L-theanine, again, in a ratio that's not going to give you jitters, but still that motivational kick. There's also some muconiferines extract, which is a male fertility drug in India and Africa. It's also
all right, fertility benefits.
Yeah,
what's up, ladies in the chat? I saw you in there telling me I was good looking. I'm pounding Steven's grape drink. Let's go.
And it's actually they used to use it for Parkinson's because the highest concentration of L-dopa, which is the precursor to dopamine, is found in the muconiferines plant. And that's a treatment for Parkinson's is actually exogenous dopamine, which is pretty cool. And so essentially what I'm trying to say is I really tried to I did stick with 100% naturally found ingredients. Some of our ingredients are lab made perhaps, but that doesn't mean that they're not identical to what we can find naturally. So that was important to me. It's also nice to kind of reinvent the shot game because traditionally 5 Hour Energy has had this space cornered for like 5 fucking years or 10 years, and they haven't innovated. And so I thought there's a nice room for something fun, quick, something you can take to go. That can really kind of like time your boost and put you on a nice one.
There you go. Well, I find them convenient. I drink a lot of caffeine daily. And once I'm out in the evening, I prefer the energy drinks over the black coffee. It's a little bit lighter on my tummy than pounding, large doses of the black coffee is more of a basically it's a before 6 p.m. game. Once I'm out kind of doing comedy or whatnot, and yours are very convenient to keep in the car or my backpack when I'm on the road because if I can't track down coffee, they're right there. And I think he said it's available on Amazon and that people can also just follow the Instagram account. Why don't you let people know where they can find it?
Yeah, I got you like a 50-pack arriving Monday, so that would be sweet.
Ooh, all right, set for a while.
Yeah, really cool. But yeah, so I really urge everyone to check out our Instagram. It's just me, but I'm doing quite a good job. We're sponsoring women's oil wrestling.
There you go, classy. I'm giving a good pitch to your science-ness, and you're like, women's oil wrestling.
Dude, it's a hot new thing. Like a lot of influencers and people in Vegas, and like I'm actually kind of on the back end, so watch for that league to blow up. We want to get acquired by Dana White. I sponsor some BKFC fighters, both male and female. We do a lot of bare knuckle posting, a lot of educational content with nutrition, and also just a lot of kind of fun stuff.
Instead of letting people know that you got a sexual assault case coming soon, why don't you just let people know what the Instagram account is so they can follow it?
Cell Shot Nutrition, Instagram. Thank you all.
There you go. Help Steven make that sponsor women in underwear money so that he can be he can make $20 million and be the next Girls Gone Wild guy.
There are worse avenues.
Yeah. All right. That is the episode. Thank you for hanging out with us. Here, we'll take one more just out calling you Science Diddy and Runaway Slav. What is so difficult about healthy diet, daily exercise, busting daily nuts and daily sunlight? It's worked for the last 12,000 years while hunting dinosaurs. That's why I like to bust my nuts out in the sun. You get both in at the same time.
And supplementing can make your diet and the exercise easier, particularly caffeine in the morning with, when you don't have to do coffee or green tea extract.
And then you've got Benny the Jet saying, hey, Run Your Mouth fans, why don't we help Steven afford some blinds?
I'm renting. That's why.
There you go. All right, last comment of the day. Snortable coffee would be a gold mine if you invented that. You'd be set for life. Everyone would just use it to hide doing coke in public. That
Shout
does
out to
exist.
Spike. My cell shots are now going to be used between the stripper and prostitute community in Las Vegas. That's another inroad that I've had. I'm very serious. It's a more sustainable boost. I designed them to feel a lot like Adderall. So if you go downstream, Adderall releases dopamine and certain other neurotransmitters at certain times and spots, and that's what I really tried to mimic with the muconaprines extract and the caffeine.
There you go. And
it's a nice, more sustainable alternative to doing drugs.
okay, 2 more comments, then we're really going to call it. Simp Gladdy wants to know how he buys stock in this genius, which, maybe, Steven, maybe you do want to crowdfund and get some Run Your Mouth sponsor money.
Variety packs on Amazon, my friend. Cell Shot Nutrition Variety Pack, $39.99.
Listen, I've been talking about stock scams here. Maybe we can open up first round of funding to exclusive to the Run Your Mouth listeners. All right, and now here's a hot take that I don't agree with, and we're going to call it an episode after this. Stop renting or get a roommate. There is no world in which having a roommate is better. Like, living in a nice spot with a roommate is not better than living in a more practical spot without a roommate. Roommates are not pleasant as an adult.
Yeah, and I also, maybe buying a house might be better, but I always thought that was kind of a scam for some reason. That's the one libertarian thing. I don't know. It's like you never own the land or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I would like to own some land with like its own water supply, just because I like the idea of that. And then who knows, maybe get lucky with the mineral rights down the line or something. Home ownership concerns me for a couple reasons. First is I just see all the Fed money in the system, the baby boomers dying off, and you wonder, hey, are these like at the moment, inflation bailed you out of your home investment and it was great. But I mean, like for the last 30 years, if you bought a home, inflation helped you out and it was a great play. I have some concerns. One with like, I look at some of what's going on with like the new like micro houses and like 3D printing technology, and I just wonder if like it's almost odd the way that we've had technological development that you still need a framer and like that you need all these things that you can't almost just like stack like pre-built boxes together in a way and get an increasingly bigger home. So I wonder the changing dynamics with remote work of if more if cities are going to be as in demand as they've been in the last, let's say 50 years. And then for me, the other concerns with home ownership is just major changes to your taxes or insurance that can make it unaffordable. And then lastly, I don't like dealing with anything ever. I just not, having to deal with things. It's not for me. It's for some people. There's some people like getting out on the lawn. They like fixing the roof. They like working on the gutters. They like having a day to rake the things. Like the way things fall apart that I just don't deal with. Like for me personally, home ownership sounds like a nightmare.
Like a job. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I rent and everything is somebody else's problem. Would I like to live in a nicer spot? Yeah. I guess what I'd like the security of knowing that you own it and that you get to keep it and that you can't be evicted. But you don't even really have that because you got the mortgage. And if you start losing money, you can't afford your mortgage. You're losing you'll lose what you put down, the 20% that you put down on the thing. If the home goes up in value, you still have the lawyer fees and the real estate fees on both ends. So a home's got to appreciate more than 10% in value before you're even at break even. And then you've got the fact that you got to deal with all the repairs, and then you start getting obsessive with, I own the thing, I better make it look nice. It starts turning into Fight Club where you're like, this furniture and that thing. It's like, I don't know. I got other things. I want to worry about the next. Look at the sound quality on this thing. And then think about all of the plumbing that would just go wrong in my house. I don't want to deal with that.
100%.
Denny the Jet, mortgage insurance, Robbie, it's required. What is mortgage insurance? Insurance? I don't know either. You see? Shows what we know. All right, that's the episode. You got anything else you wanted to say before I let you go, Mr. Steven?
Oh, no, this is great. Like you should do more with like more fan engagement. I don't know how you would do that, but I love the back and forth, man. It must be
I've been teasing it forever, and I got in touch with Andrew because I think if we can't launch by next year, I'm just going to go the Patreon route. But I do want to start taking phone calls between segments instead of live comments. But most specifically, I'm looking forward to doing the leftover and call-in show, which will just be the topics I didn't get to during the week, a little bit looser, and taking calls. Steven, I had one more question for you before I let you go. Tell us why we were all wrong last week at 90,000 to think, hey, we should take some profits on Bitcoin.
Yeah. I guess it's like once you kind of, okay, I'll put it simply. Bitcoin's like nothing we've ever experienced before. There's a finite amount, and people always underestimate the fiat money that we have. The price of nothing ever goes up. It's the price of our money goes down, and that's the only thing that happens. And because Bitcoin is finite, you can break it up. It is a direct reflection of people kind of understanding that the value of our money only goes down. The prices of houses do not go up. Our money goes down.
All right, fair enough. That is the episode. Back next week, Wednesday, for a new one, and potentially next weekend as well. Don't have much live gigs to plug at the moment. I think I will be adding a gig the weekend of December 20th in... It's not Austin, but what's a major city about an hour from Austin? I don't know. Whatever. That's our episode. Thanks for hanging out. Back shortly with a new episode.